Hello, this is Rebecca from Eclectic Endeavors. Hi everybody. Today we're making this cake box. I have a template for you. You're going to print that out and then you're going to either trace it, or if you wish you can print it directly onto your cardstock or pattern paper. I recommend you use at least medium to heavy weight for this, especially if you want to load on the embellishments. So just trace that all out. And then you're going to cut it out. Or again, if you can just cut it out if you've printed it on your paper. Sorry I go off the screen a little bit. I'm not really used to doing videos a whole lot, so I'm not used to where my zone is, where my hands need to be. So I have a tip for you. When you're using larger scissors, make sure you don't cut the end of an inner corner using the tips of the scissors. It can kind of crack your cardstock at the very end when you finish your slice. So you might notice a couple times here, even though it goes by kind of quick right there, especially, where I open up the scissors wide to finish the cut rather than using the tips. Right now I'm just sketching in the dashed lines where you're going to score and fold. But since I created the template, I decided I could just use a ruler and make them faster and more accurate this way. You can mark them however you like. Of course, if you've printed it directly to your paper, you will already have those marks. Even fast forwarded, this takes a little bit, sorry. So you're going to notice in a minute that when I'm doing my scoring, I have a line marked on my scoring board that I just did with a permanent marker. For things that don't line up directly at the side or the top edge, it gives you a convenient way to make sure that you use the same groove and don't accidentally jump a groove over to the right or left and end up with a scoring that's crooked. It's a very convenient way to have your board marked. Those also happen to be at 4 1/4 and 5 1/2, which has helped me with other projects. But you can put them wherever you like. So now you want to fold all your score lines. I realize I missed one right there, so I catch up. Now you only need 2 pieces of adhesive to put this together, which makes it very convenient. You can see that piece I'm putting on now on the end of one of the rectangular panels. Unfortunately, I go off camera in a second for when I actually adhere that, but that's going to go, you're going to fold that tab down and it's going to go on the rectangular panel next to it. The reason I cut my adhesive instead of tearing it is because occasionally I've torn my paper, and of course with a project like this it's not going to be as strong, and also sometimes it can tear into the patterned area that you're going to see, so I just prefer to cut it sometimes. So you can see there that tab is going to get, I'm peeling off the tape now, the tab is going to get attached to the end of the other rectangular section. It goes off camera a little bit, I'm so sorry. Okay, so once that is adhered, it'll be pretty obvious where the other adhesive goes. You can sort of see me fussing with a little bit there. Okay, there we got it. I had a little bit of bent cardstock that was sticking out a little, so I trimmed that off. And that last piece of adhesive gets adhered to the triangular section. This is one of the fastest boxes I think I've ever put together, so it's a great one if you're trying to do favors or something and get them done quickly. I was kind of thinking of a beach wedding when I made this one. That's why I picked beach. My son said, I don't think beach and cake really goes together. And I said, well, it does if there's a wedding. And there you can see how the box opens and closes. Mine didn't really want to stay closed very well. So I put some repositionable glue dots, one at the top where that little gap is and one on the flap. So now I'm attaching some ribbon. Well, it's not really ribbon, it's kind of trim, and it's made out of sort of a thicker twine kind of thing. It looks very beachy, I thought, but you can see the ends are pretty easily frayed. So I'm attaching a little bit of Ranger multi-medium matte on the ends. This is a great tip for any kind of trim that wants to fray on you, any kind of ribbon, edges of fabric even for your craft projects, and you'll never ever see it. So right there, I was just looking at the end of that because I had a couple staples. I had used them previously to keep the twine from unraveling. I was debating whether I was going to remove those right now or later, and I decided to do it later. So you're going to want to hold your trim in place, which of course is, very boring to watch. So I fast forward this quite a bit. And then in the end, I realized that I could just put a clip on there and that would be faster and easier. So there goes my clothespin. And I'm gluing down the other side. Letting it dry a little bit on one side before doing the other side is a good idea. And you're going to need 13 inches of trim for this template. Make sure when you print it too that it scales to fit the full 8.5 by 11 sheet. Make sure your printer is set that way. I mean, you could make it smaller. It won't fit on a bigger sheet. If you increase the size, it won't fit on 8.5 by 11, but perhaps you have a printer that can accommodate larger paper. So you could enlarge it if you wanted to. So just waiting for the glue to dry. Of course, you can decorate this however you want. I'm actually going to include measurements for matting panels if you wish. So here I'm showing how I make that little embellishment at the top of the screen. I just took some tulle. It was actually white, which I sprayed with a gold mist. I scrunched it up, tied it with some twine, and just fluffed it out to make the little ruffly thingy. I don't know what you call those. Little flower maybe? So the little shell, I added some rub and buff too to give it a little more character since it was quite white. And then I'm using a little bit of glossy accents. Sorry I got off the camera. To attach that to my box. Now my paper is medium weight and that shell is pretty heavy, but it still stood up to the weight. The other shell, the paper one, is one I cut from the patterned paper. That was the same pack as the base. So I'm just putting some little foam squares on the back and figuring out exactly where I want that to go. You can see from the back there's actually a little peach mark. That's because that was originally white and I filled in the opening with a E93 Copic marker. It's a beautiful peach color. A lot of people overlook it because it's in with the E's, not in with the R's or the YR's, but it's a really pretty color. So now I've picked out a couple little embellishments I'm thinking of putting on there. I haven't quite figured out where they're going to go. So I decide one little pearl is going to go over here. These are actually vintage. I don't know if they're real or probably not. They're just from a bunch of buttons that I got on eBay. They were thrown in there. They're quite dark and a little bit shabby looking, so they're kind of perfect, I thought. So I tuck another one in this other spot. And I tested a couple other embellishments, but I decide that I'm finished. Fluff up my bow a little bit. Yep, not going to use that one. Just decide to leave it as it is. So here you go. Here's how it looks all finished. It's a beautiful little box. I hope you make one. Bye.